From the Florida Today newsroom, this is the Florida Today Show.
This is what you submitted. I'm not making it up. So
No, that's fine. I just want to make sure I'm telling you the right thing.
And what about the 12/3/21 purchase from Netgear for a mobile Wi-Fi router for $636.64? Was that for the nonprofit?
No, that was for my office.
For your office in Merritt Island?
Correct. And to use apart from the office. We've had issues with the internet over there, and it also enables people to telework. Are we going to get into the $200,000 that you've spent in rent over the 8 years?
See, this is what a deflector does.
I thought
I'm just
you're-
asking about your transactions for the bill folder.
Well, you're asking me about $100 and something transactions out of a $5 million pool.
No, I'm asking for $39,000 of transactions that came to light over the last 2 years. And so this is what you submitted as a bill folder. This is
Right.
part of this agenda item. I'm not even going back into what some of the other purchases were.
Well, is that why you had your spouse put things that are absolutely incorrect about inventory tracking on Facebook, or did he do that on his own volition?
Again, this is what a deflector does. All right, so
Better
Commissioner
to deflect
Lober's.
than to lie. He also wrote about my genitals on a prior occasion. Was that
So
appropriate as well?
There it is. There it is. So
That's
with that,
appropriate.
and I'll just say for the record, it was the previous county manager that found my office to rent as central in my district. Wasn't something that I pick or chose or found, and we needed the space, so that was why I was located in that space. So it wasn't like I
True
was.
politician answer.
It's the real answer. It's
200
absurd.
grand. 200 grand.
Okay, guys,
absurd.
let's just,
You might think having a completely Republican Board of County Commissioners would make for easy discussions, a lot of like-minded thinking, and professional and respectful attitudes between each of the elected officials serving their constituents. Well, welcome to Brevard County. Hello, Space Coast. Welcome to the Florida Today Show. I'm Rob Landers. It all started a few weeks ago when an anonymous public records request for commissioners' purchasing card records was sent to the commission and various members of the public, including Florida Today reporters. Now the latest twist in the saga is the hostility and personal attack seen at the latest county commission meeting and a growing rift among the commissioners. There's no one better to talk to about the folks that run Brevard's government than reporters Ralph Chapoco and Dave Berman. This week, Dave and Ralph chatted with me about the original spending in question, the audit of the purchasing cards that's now underway, what Brevard taxpayers are supposed to think about all of this, and where is the chair? Watch.
Dave, Ralph, we've kind of been engrossed in this story over the past couple of weeks about county commission purchasing cards. Who wants to get started in kind of laying out what has happened up to this point?
Well, I could start. Pretty much the issue was that there were some questions raised about the use of purchasing cards by the county commissioners and their staff. And these cards are kind of like corporate credit cards that commissioners use to buy things for their office expenses and some other items that they would need to pay for. The issue that came up was there was a anonymous public records request to find what the commissioners used their card purchases for the last 2 years. And then there was an email sent out by this anonymous person to a number of other officials detailing what they found in the reports, particularly about Commissioner Brian Lober, who represents the 2nd District of the County Commission. And those purchases included office supplies for some of them, but also include high-tech equipment and security cameras and other things. And Commissioner Lober said some of that was being used to give to nonprofit organizations and also to other government agencies, which he contends was legal for him to do based on some procedures that were set up by the county government for use of money.
In reading your stories, we're talking about $40,000 that was put on those purchasing cards over the past 2 years, correct?
Roughly about that time, yes. Pretty much with that, the time frame pretty much aligns with the pandemic. I think that's what's really striking about this particular incident, and that's what's particularly striking about why this has garnered such a lot amount of attention from the community. The magnitude of it is just striking because it's multiple times more than the commissioner with the next highest total. The fact that he spent $40,000 in his past couple years has gotten just the bulk of the attention, and also what he spent the money on, and into some of the specifics of the items that he spent the money on.
Brian Lober is saying that the purchases were approved by the county commission, correct? Like, this is CARES Act spending, the money that the county got from the federal government to help the county through the pandemic. And he's saying that all of this was approved by the county. So why is this an issue?
The issue is that how the money was allocated. He was approved to use money for certain categories of spending, including for nonprofit organizations and other government agencies. But I don't believe the other county commissioners were aware he was going to use his purchasing cards to make some of these transactions. And they also were not aware of some of the specifics of what transactions, what items he purchased, which never, the categories were there, but not the specific items that were purchased, the specific computer equipment or the specific security cameras or an office chair, which became a big topic of discussion at the last county commission meeting. And he said he purchased this for another government office in the county office building in Vieira, but was still trying to track down where that chair wound up at.
Okay, so at best, this is you went through the procedures of allocating this money out the wrong way, correct?
He went out to allocate these procedures in a way that was controversial, that some people are questioning wasn't the true intent of this CARES Act money in the first place, given that he spent some of it on himself in his office. He's quick to point out, though, that now he hasn't shown any kind of remorse or guilt for this, because he really believes that this was a legitimate process or a legitimate decision on his part to actually use the funds for this purpose. But some commissioners have had their eyes open to what some of these purchases were, and they're questioning it.
Okay, so we're now in audit mode. When all of this came to the forefront, Commissioner Rita Pritchett from District 1 up in Titusville had made the motion to really kind of tweak how those purchasing cards are used. Like, if you're going to purchase computer equipment, go through the county IT department instead of using your purchasing card. If you're, go through the proper channels, make sure everything is on the record and easy to account for. But Commissioner Christine Zonka, whose district is Commission
District
5, Palm Bay, went a step further and said, no, I think we need to have an audit on all of these purchases. And in that meeting, Commissioner Lober said, well, I think we should take it back to everybody, right? Back to when everybody started. And everybody was on board with that. And then all of a sudden there's a problem with the audit. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Who wants that one?
Well, I could talk about that a little bit. This was a week after the county commission approved doing the audit. Exactly a week later, Commissioner Lober sent out an email to the clerk of courts and comptroller, who was Rachel Sadoff, who was going to be spearheading the audit. And he questioned whether she was the right person to do the audit because of several reasons, that Commissioner Lober and her have had some falling outs over other unrelated issues in the recent past. And also Commissioner Zonka is also personal friends with Rachel Sadoff, and Commissioner Lober felt that their personal friendship she would not be the appropriate person to do the audit because of those factors, and also some others that, for example, Commissioner Lober contributed to Rachel Sadoff's election campaign in 2020, and Commissioner Lober's wife is an attorney who works for the clerk of court's office. So he said there's going to be a lot of suspicions on both sides, whether she'll be too partial to looking for bad things about Commissioner Lober or too partial in favor of him because of his wife's employment in that office and also his political contributions to her election campaign.
Okay, so he's worried there's a conflict of interest. So we move forward yet another week, which I mean, and Rachel Sadoff, the clerk of courts, has completely defended herself and her ability to stay impartial in the audit process. But we fast forward another week, and now Commissioner Lober has requested an independent audit of the purchasing cards using $32,000 of CARES Act money, correct?
So that's correct. What happened was Rachel Sadoff, as you were saying before, decided to not recuse herself, so she's going to keep going with the audit. But Lober still had some concerns about the results of those audit or with the perceived bias of what those results will be. So he had asked the commission to approve a plan in which he would use $32,500 of that original $5,000 allocation that he got from CARES Act money to pay a contractor with the county to do its own audit of his purchase cards. That's going to cost about $32,000. The thing is that the county struck that down. They were not willing to approve him spending CARES Act money or money that was originally from the CARES Act to actually pay for this audit. There was a motion in which Brian Lober actually wanted to use his commissioner's office funds, roughly about each commissioner gets about a certain allocation, about $380,000, and he wanted to use a portion of that for this audit. It seems like he can do it without the commission's permission, and so there's some wiggle room there if he wants to go in that direction. The exact way he's going to go about doing it is still unsure. I don't know if he's made a decision yet, but definitively the county said you are not going to use the remaining amount of the $5 million to pay this contractor for an audit of your purchase cards.
And part of the reason that some of the other commissioners were opposed to having this other company called RSM, which is the county's outside auditor, do this report, is that the commissioners are actually the ones that approved the contract for the audits, and they felt that would be even more suspicious whether the integrity of the audit would be there if there was a company doing it that depended on the same commissioners to approve its contract for the coming years.
They also reject the idea that Sadoff can't be impartial, that this is her constitutional duty to act as the comptroller, and there's absolutely no reason that she can't do this. In a second audit, an independent audit would just be doing double the work of what effectively is the same process. And they suggested also that they suggested to Lober that why don't you just wait for this audit to see if it comes out negative, then you can have your own audit. But to do it at the same time is just a waste.
And
Go ahead.
in addition, just want to mention that Commissioner Zonka does say that she has a personal friendship with Rachel Sadoff, but she feels that that personal friendship should not affect Rachel Sadoff's work as a comptroller and clerk of courts, that a friendship will not interfere with an impartial look at these expenses.
What were the commissioners' reactions to the whole premise of spending $32,500 in CARES Act money on an independent audit?
I think part of it is that Commissioner Lober feels this is not really CARES Act money he's talking about because of a accounting practice that the county had approved where the actual CARES Act money that the county received, some of it was shifted directly to help pay for public safety expenses. And the money he's talking about now is money that basically is general fund money that replaced that money that went to public safety. And there's more leeway in how that money is spent. So there's less restrictions on what the money can be used for. So I believe he feels it's a legitimate expense and a legal expense for him to use this money that he has discretion to spend.
So, oh, sorry, was there some?
No, go ahead.
So what's happening next? So Rachel Sadoff's still going to continue with our audit. So the time frame from that, based on, as you can tell, based on the great reporting that Dave's done, is still unknown. Hopefully it'll get completed in the next few weeks, but it's still up in the air whether or not. But the ball is really in Brian Lober's court. He asked whether he needed commissioner's approval to actually use his commissioner's office money for this audit, and apparently he can. The question is whether or not he wants to. So it's $32,000. I believe from the meeting he still has a remaining $41,000. So he has discretion for how he wants to use that, and whether or not he uses for that will remain to be seen, and what the results are from that audit.
And he's also says that it might not cost as much as $32,500, which was what is the amount that was in his original request. He thinks it could be done for less than $20,000. And he did ask the county manager whether it's an expense that would be able to be used out of his office budget. And the county manager said that if you feel it's an administrative expense for your office, then it's one of the criteria that could be used by your office budget. So it like Ralph said, it's up to Commissioner Lober whether he feels it is an administrative expense and whether he feels he wants to spend the office money that his office has for annual expenses to do this audit.
Okay, so I'm gonna put the big question out there. I know that at least one of you is working on a story on this. Where's the chair?
Okay, so that the basic answer to that question is we actually don't know. We lose track of the chair from the time of the purchase on afterwards. There was some discussion at the commission meeting about its location, and apparently Commissioner Brian Lober said that it's probably in Vieira, the government center. But past that point, or into more specifics, we just don't know where that chair is. It's in theory there should be a way to track it with an inventory tag, but as of right now, we just don't know whether. First of all, we don't know where the chair is, so there's no possible way there could be an inventory tag. But it definitely is a mystery as to what is the ultimate fate of that item in the county.
Okay, so just to clarify, because I know that this was part of Commissioner Pritchett's plea at that original county commission meeting, was she wanted to make sure, and Commissioner Zonka said the same thing, they both wanted to make sure everything had been inventoried and everything was tagged. But to clarify for viewers, the chair we're talking about is a $750 office chair?
Yes.
It's 700 and go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, it's $750. And one thing I want to mention also about the tagging is under county rules, items under $1,000 do not require them to be tagged. So legally, there's no legal requirement for the county or Commissioner Lober to have had this chair tagged with like a ID number or anything like that to track it.
I'm going to look at this a little bit differently. So all of this spending has happened during the pandemic. And I know for me personally, coming into the Florida Today offices for the past 2 years, outside of Ralph, nobody else has really been coming into the office. We've all been working remotely. Most of us have most of the team has been working from home or, on their phones or on laptops out in the community. And so Commissioner Lober is saying, well, I was doing the same thing, basically. I was working from home. I was purchasing equipment so I could work from home. And then the auditor shows up at his office and he's bringing in a laptop that he was bringing in from home, correct?
That's correct. And this was because the clerk of courts, Rachel Sadoff, wanted to physically see the equipment that was purchased with the purchasing cards. So he brought in a laptop and some other tech equipment like hotspot devices and things like that he was using at his house so that she could see them and account for them.
So some of the spending could have been CARES Act money going to make sure that he could still fulfill his duties as a commissioner while working remotely during a pandemic, correct?
A lot of purchases appear to possibly justify that kind of spending or that kind of purpose. There are other purchases in there, donations for burial services. There's obviously that chair. There's also equipment such as a green screen and audio equipment, and there's also other purchases related to networking. So it could be for a whole host of purposes, including an ability to work from remotely, at least away from the office. But there was also PVC piping, PVC materials for pipes. And during the commission meeting, he also referenced a leaky dishwasher or a faucet of some kind. So it could have been also for those types of purchases or for those types of purposes.
And he had mentioned at the meeting and also when he talked with us separately that there was some repairs that need to be done in the District 2 Commission office, which is on Merritt Island. And he felt that he was actually saving the county money by purchasing the equipment that needed to do the repairs. So a subcontractor who would be doing some of those repairs would not have to buy it. And also that he was doing some of the work himself at the office to fix some of the things that need fixing and was using like nuts and bolts and the PVC fittings to do that type of work.
Oh, and also, Dave, we forgot to tell them about the nonprofit. So some of the equipment was actually donated to the nonprofit as well. Surveillance equipment and other kind of computer technology equipment. So I just wanted to add that in because I don't think we mentioned that.
Which nonprofit?
Okay, so there's this complicated thing where he did tell us, but he doesn't want us to mention the nonprofit publicly. So I'm a little hesitant to do that.
Understood, but I would imagine if he's wanting to make sure that his name is cleared in an audit, being fully transparent about where the funding was spent would probably be a really good idea, right?
We did have a conversation about him, and I think Dave and I went over the conversation before. I think he and I heard the same thing, that if we were to go to the nonprofit itself and ask if they would be willing to have their name mentioned, he would be okay with that. But he was unwilling to divulge the name of that nonprofit publicly.
And another thing is the clerk of courts is apparently aware of the organization and will be investigating it to assure that the equipment did actually go to where it was supposed to be going to.
Okay, so while we know off the record, the public does not know on the record yet until after the audit is done if the name of the nonprofit is included in the final audit report, which would then become public record, correct?
Yes, the audit report will become public record, and it probably will be discussed by the county commission when the audit comes out. And Commissioner Zonka, who's the chair of the county commission, said she might call for a special meeting to discuss the results of the audit when it's available, and realizing that all 5 commissioners will be mentioned in the audit. It's not just Commissioner Lober, although it's kind of like the focus so far is his spending. But Rachel Sadoff is investigating all 5 commissioners' spending for the last 2 years on the purchasing card. So all of that will be in the audit, and there might also be recommendations for future policies that the county might consider included in that audit.
Just to add, to your original question, in terms of that meeting, it was contentious. I mean, the fact of the matter is that a lot of the commissioners were just wondering where all this equipment went. And in terms of Brian Lober getting to pay for his own audit, there was a range of emotion or a range of opinions on it. A couple of the commissioners just flat out said, no, we're not going to let you do this. Others said, why don't you delay it and see if there's a negative finding in the audit, and then you can use the money to conduct your own. That was one of Commissioner John Tobias' contentions, is that, none of this needs to have to be done immediately. Why don't you just wait for the result and see what happens, and then you can go from there. But there were personal attacks. There were mentions of social media, some issues having nothing to do with this purchasing card, but it was a pretty contentious meeting.
As a Brevard County taxpayer, what is my takeaway on this? Like, what should I be looking for? What should I be waiting for? What's next for me?
Well, I think the next thing is the big thing will be what Rachel Sadoff finds in her audit conclusions to see whether there was anything improper done. And the other thing that taxpayers should know is, going forward, all the purchase card transactions will be public on the county commission agendas, and commissioners will see them every month that they are filed. And so the public and the commission and other county officials will know exactly what the commissioners are spending their money on in a public way, because there'll be documents included in each report that comes before the commission when the monthly reports are filed.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to add?
That will be keeping tabs on this topic, and there probably will be further discussion at county commission meetings on this. And Ralph and I will be keeping close watch on what the future developments are.
My thanks to Dave and Ralph for joining me today. You can reach out to reporter Dave Berman via email at dberman@floridatoday.com, and Ralph Chapoco can be reached at rchapoco@floridatoday.com. If you have questions about the Florida Today Show, you can always reach out to me at rlanders@floridatoday.com. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.